we set this up so if you have any questions, you can write them in the chat or to me and we'll take them up, or you can yourself raise your hand under the reaction part of Zoom and you can speak yourself and ask them. I have a question I would like to start off with, and then we can continue with other people's questions. So my first question was to bring this together with the event we had yesterday. We had two speakers from two Swedish organizations, and one of them spoke about agriculture and how to make agriculture sustainable, especially in India, but also here in the West. And one of the points she made was that their organization really saw a connection between gender roles and the ability to create sustainability in agriculture. And I was just wondering if you have any connection to build on that within the UN and your work, if you see the same impact of gender roles in your work towards sustainability. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for that very, very important question. I'll put it in perspective. If you look at the Africa region where my work is focused, actually 80% of the food that is consumed is produced by smallholder farmers. And these smallholder farmers, almost about 80% of them are women. And so if you want to be able, because the biggest empowerment is socioeconomic empowerment, to put food on the table, to put more money in the pockets. And since their livelihood depends on agriculture, solutions in the entire agro value chain must be sustainable and affordable. And what we've been doing with the climate action solutions is because we're focusing on how do we work with nature, not against nature. And most of these smallholder farmers that are women across the continent are actually practicing these nature-based solutions, applying organic fertilizer, organic manure, using agroforestry techniques that are actually helping rejuvenate the soil and not actually destroying the soil. But they suffer one of the biggest challenge, which is post-harvest losses that are currently costing the continent $48 billion US. And it's pretty much the same in India and Asia and even some parts in Latin America. So what's the point? The point is to then be able to empower and ensure that the gender dimension move from a slogan to reality. We are supporting with climate action solutions that are actually developed by young people called solar dryers, which is a climate action solution. But in the course of young people being guided to develop those solar dryers, they are creating entrepreneurial opportunities and developing their passion in sustainability and creating businesses around that. But they're helping to decentralize this at an affordable price to communities where women are able to dry their food. And as a result of them losing their food because of lack of these solutions, they are now not only preserving the food, but they are able to sell the food when they want, and at the same time put more money in their pockets and food on the table. That's the way we are leveraging climate action solutions to be able to power resilience of communities and more so solve the problem that women have actually been facing. But in the course of doing that, we are then creating the space for sustainability, entrepreneurial ingenuity for the youth who are jumping in, picking the opportunities, retooling their skills, refining their skills, and developing these climate action solutions.
Thank you for that answer. We got another question in the chat. It was actually only sent to me, but I'll say it out loud. So Layla is asking if you have any concrete advice on which channels to go through when trying to get started within an environmental field, for example, like what good paths, which NGO or internship are you saying that should be a good one to get into the career of sustainability?
The biggest pathway is your passion. Without passion, anything you engage in, you will soon give up. But with passion, you will do it. I always say this, I always say that the biggest organization is an individual, because you can join an organization and leave the next day, but you still remain you. So if you are passionate about an idea, you can move from one organization to another still with that idea and implement it. So what is my point? If you start with as an intern, you are starting to learn something or to give or to offer something as value in the course of learning that you are passionate about. You can't just do it to fulfill something because it must be done. if you're not passionate about it, then it will slip away. So the first starting point is to develop your passion. What do you want to do that is not only going to solve a problem, but at the same time is going to touch many lives? And that is the starting point. Then where you do it now becomes less important because the drive is already there. And so if you get an opportunity to intern in an NGO, in an international UN, it doesn't really matter. This is the point I always tell everybody, I mean, especially those who are beginning their career, want to get a career in sustainability. Develop your passion. If it is in agriculture, what do you want to do? Is it to develop solutions that can help reduce the post-harvest losses that a mother is suffering in a village in India or in Africa? Or is it about trying to look at an alternative that can then be able to develop a clean cook stove so that mothers are not going to be depending on charcoal, but they can be depending on briquettes that are made from waste, converted to briquettes that then reduces the indoor pollution. So looking at these solutions that are environmentally sustainable, but they must be coming from your passion. Or is it about fashion that you want to start looking at alternatives to start reducing the kind of apparels that are being used today, but to start turning waste to produce different fashionable products? That determination is at the individual level, but it must always be to address a problem. And from there, then, regardless of where you end up, you will be in the sustainability career business.
I think that's a great question. I would like to follow up and see if you have any personal experience within internships that maybe you could tell Layla about so she can get some ideas in her head about what to do.
Come again?
I was wondering if you had any personal stories or experiences you could tell Layla about so she can get some more ideas on what to do.
Yes, let me start with my example. I've actually written a book, and I think you guys can download the book on my richardmunang.com. It's actually free. I wrote it as a mentorship tool for young people in the world to develop their sustainability career. And I actually brought in my pathway on how I followed to reach where I am today. And when I finished university, as I was looking for scholarships to further my interest in understanding the issues that I confronted, as I indicated in my remarks, in our community, I volunteered in an NGO in the northwestern part of Cameroon. And this NGO was an environmental NGO where I wanted to start to understand the kind of actions they were undertaking. And mostly we were working with communities and guiding them to adopt sustainable approaches like agroforestry, to apply those techniques in the farm, less tillage, conservation agriculture, application of organic manure. And the lessons I learned in this NGO for 1 year, even without pay, helped me to frame my application in a way that got me a scholarship to study my master's degree in Nottingham University and later on my PhD. The point I am bringing here is that knowledge that I got when I volunteered for 1 year in this NGO did not only help me to get that scholarship, but it's helped me throughout my entire career today. It was the best knowledge that if that was evaluated in terms of financial values, it would have been worth more than any amount of money that one could have imagined. So the point I'm making is that value is acquired, and you can easily acquire value when you have a passion for something. I had a quest to understand the environmental issues that were plaguing my mother's farm, causing crop failure. And then anything around environment, around sustainability, I was interested to understand it. And that drive helped me to volunteer for free, but it gave me knowledge, which that knowledge helped me to further my education. And even today, I still use some of that knowledge that I gain to be able to devise the different approaches and solutions that I do in the job that I do. I don't know whether I've answered your question, but that's from a very practical experience, and this is more elaborated in my book, and I hope you guys can download it and also read it.
Thank you. I think that part about your book is a great advice for Layla and everyone else here. We'll make sure to publish that somewhere on our social media as well, so you can, so we can tell everyone where to find it. I think, excellent. Yeah, I think Mona had a question if she wants to ask them.
Yes, I was just a bit wondering what is the challenges with your work? Are everyone supportive with your work, or is it some challenges that's really hard to do? Or Yeah, if you understand what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, come again. I think there was a break. I didn't hear that part.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was wondering if your type of work, if it's any challenges, or are everyone supportive with your work, or is it hard working with the sustainability? Because some people would say actually could be hard because not everyone is supportive. But I really wonder with your opinion and experience with this.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's a very important question. And it is important from the fact that challenges are disguised opportunities. And you will not always be accepted with a product or a solution that you bring to society or to communities. But what you must always do is to find ways to convince people, to prove to them that the solution or the product is worth it. And that convincing part is never easy. And that is why I go back to the very word again, passion. If you are not passionate about what you do, you will give up very easily. You cannot successfully drive a career in sustainability if you do not develop the stamina and the resilience to be able to cope with the adversity that will come, even when you are bringing a solution. Why I say so is because the number of challenges that are plaguing the entire globe today, including in Africa here, whether we're talking food insecurity, where solutions are supposed to be devised, or we're talking indoor pollution that is killing over 600,000 people every year, or we're talking youth unemployment. The solutions with the contemporary challenges that will be devised will not be what people are used to. And therefore, one of the ways to overcome the challenge is you must be passionate about what you do, because a disappointment can actually slow you down. But if you are passionate, the disappointment will instead inspire you to find an alternative strategy to still bring the same solution to the community. The second aspect, which to me is also very, very important, is to always engage even those who bring the disappointment, so that at least they become part of the solution and own the process. And that is what I have actually used personally in the work that we do across the region. Engaging the communities, engaging and bringing alternatives, but also building on what works, so that we are not reinventing the wheel, but we are filling gaps whereby they are unable to fill them. That way you ensure a sustainable approach, and also you will then be able to drive realistic transformational impact that can be visible to millions of people. But again, you will face challenges, that is guaranteed, but always see challenges as disguised opportunities. And know that with passion, you are unstoppable.
Thank you so much.
Oh, we have another question. Sula, do you want to go ahead and say it?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I want to ask something maybe technical. I am sure that most of the people have passion here, but we feel a little bit maybe lost or don't know where to start. Or like me, for example, I am soon at the end of my master education. So I am trying to understand if I should continue with a PhD. For example, I'm studying environmental economics and I have economics background already. But I feel like it is already super technical, and we cannot find that much problem, like solutions to the current problems with these 19th century economics, basically. And do you think that if I would continue at PhD, would it be valuable to work in kind of developing countries, for example, or is it only the interest is enough, basically? That's what I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, that is a very good question. And I think you're not the only one suffering, being in that dilemma at the moment. I think there are so many young people across the world who are either studying or have graduated and are in your shoes. I was once in your shoes at some point. But this is what I'll tell you, frankly. What you study doesn't really matter. Look, for me, I transitioned from theoretical physics to master's environmental science to a PhD in climate policy. But if you look at the work I do today, yes, I pin it down on climate change, but my interests are more on how does those solutions touch the life of a common mother in a village. That's my passion. How does what you do translate to a meaningful impact in someone's life? Then what you study doesn't really matter that much more. But what you study helps you to lay the foundation to understand fundamentals and principles, but it doesn't necessarily give you the drive What gives you the drive is you determining what you want to do and start to do it with what you have. And what you have is yourself, and start to understand, because you might have studied environmental economics, but you are passionate in fashion, sustainable fashion. But you will still bring in your economic understanding, fundamental principles into that, but in more an applied way. But it doesn't necessarily mean that if you didn't study economics, you wouldn't still have done that. No, you will still do it. So the point I am making is that firstly, what you studied opened doors, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it shut you down from doing alternative things. And therefore, you are in a correct position at the moment to figure out what you want to do. Sometimes just pause a little bit and say, okay, assuming that you don't even have the masters, what would you have done? And start from what you would have done that you are passionate about. And then you will then figure out what I usually call sometimes a purpose, which is what can I be useful for? What drives me? What is really that thing that gets me up, that if I do it with or without money, I can still be passionate about it. And that's how it is. But you will then use your environmental economy when you're applying for jobs, because you need a qualification. So the master's in this or a degree in this. But what is driving you there is not necessarily just the masters, but what you have always wanted to do and what you have developed passion around. Like my passion is to mentor young people. Without a PhD, I would have still done it. And I don't do it because I have a PhD, but I do it because I know that that is really where my passion is, so that at least young people can become the solution providers, the challenges we face. And that cannot be taken out of me. Whether I'm having the current job I have now or not, that's what I'm going to do for the rest of my life.
Thank you so much. I think for us, it's a little bit hard to understand what we like or what's our passion right now, because we cannot decide without trying, right? So I hope that your talk will be kind of guiding us right now and help us our future kind of selections. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Yes, you have to try and be prepared to fail. And when you fail, fail forward. Never fail backwards, because failing is already part of the experience. And then you will do it better, differently. And you will automatically emerge out of it, already finding your path, and it will change. What I would like to say here is that if you already have a passion around something, it doesn't necessarily mean that that passion is not going to grow. It's going to emerge, because you have to expand that idea and apply it into other aspects. But you must have passion first. And everybody has passion, but the biggest problem is that we usually relate our passion to what we are studying only, and then it restricts us in that space. But if you have an open mind that, yes, I can do anything, but I can apply what I've studied into that, but your ultimate intent should always be, what I'm doing, is it benefiting more people beyond yourself? And then is it solving a society problem and contributing to a solution? You can never really lack anything to do, but you just need time to figure it out. And I can always guide.
Thank you. That's a really good question, or answer to the question. And then Ida actually asked a similar question, and I don't know if you feel like you've answered it, but I'll ask it again. So Ida says that it's an interesting point you make about raising the issue of passion, but as a young student, it can be hard for many to know what one's exact passion is, because it's so many, you have so many interests as a student, right? Because you're studying all these different things. So she's asking, what helped you figure out what your passion is?
Very good. And that is answered in the book, but I will summarize it again here. So if you listen to what I said in my remarks, the continuous quest for solutions to address the challenges of crop failure that I saw every time that I went back home during the semester was something that I wanted to find an answer. So you develop passion by being inquisitive around something that you want to really, so if it is sustainable fashion, you are not happy with what you're seeing at the moment, you want to do something around it differently. That's how you develop interest. So it's actually just about your interest, and then you start to pursue it. Passion must not be restricted just to one thing. You can have passion on so many things, but you figure out that actually one is actually what is needed, and it keeps cascading. But the best way to develop passion around something is around what can be done to solve a problem that solves a bigger community challenge. So And I mentioned so many examples. So if you take like clean energy that they're talking about today, solar panels are being used. The disposal of the batteries are actually an issue in least developing countries. Can you start to figure out and think through how can a safe way of disposing the batteries or even recycling the batteries to produce something that can make the environment more sustainable and create more jobs happen? You're not going to have the answers today. But because that is already your interest, you will then foster complementary partnerships or build alliances. And that is why I said at the end of the day that the internet and social media is also where you will find your business partners, where you will find complementary partners to share ideas. And I think Mona can tell you how she got me. I think she got me on social media, right? That's where we connected. Is that correct? Yes. So on LinkedIn. And that's how she invited me, and then I came over. So you have immense opportunities to be able to test your ideas out there, to be able to build alliances, to be able to ask questions, to be able to fill gaps. And as a result of that, you will notice that you are getting closer to what you can actually start doing. Let me just end by saying this here. Having a job is not necessarily having a passion around that job. And having passion around something doesn't necessarily mean that that is where your job is. I don't know, this sounds a little bit paradoxical, but I don't know whether you're trying to get what I'm trying to say. So I work as the regional climate change coordinator for climate change. Of course, I deliver the work of UNEP in the region, and I love what I do. But that has not stopped me from being a mentor to young people. So your passion lives with you forever. And of course, it contributes to the work you do in a positive way. But even without having the passion, you will still do the job because you can still do the job for money. You can still do the job because you want to build a career, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that is where your passion is. So you must have these two. So you can build a career in sustainability as a job, as well as you can build a career in sustainability as part of your passion. And either will do.
That's a very good answer, and I think it also answers Julia's question, because she asked about deciding on one passion, because right now she's interested in both the ocean and climate change and climate justice and women's rights. And then I guess that answers the question in that she has to find a passion, but she can still do a career in sustainability and do both at the same time, I assume.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. And one of the things is that if you have passion in women's rights and also in oceans, you can always connect it. First of all, the oceans are not just a source for food, whether it is fish, nutritious food that people need to depend on, whether it is children or women. So if you are disrupting oceans, you are indirectly infringing into their rights indirectly, because so you can relate that, but your passion could be on women's rights, and then your interest could be to understanding how you can also fight on the destruction and the polluting of oceans and plastic pollution and all those sort of stuff. But you link that around your central pillar of your bigger passion. And at the end of the day, you will be addressing so many issues, but you must have the passion. If you don't have the passion, it's not going to last for long. And don't confuse your passion. You can still have a career job, but that doesn't close the door for your passion. You can be mentoring young people in the community about environmental solutions to simple things, not only about planting trees, but just about ensuring that at least plastics are not disposed carelessly. You don't use moving them away from plastics to degradables. I mean, even having free lectures in primary schools or secondary schools, that's just your passion, and you develop it. And the truth is that passion can actually be turned to profits. So a young person, like what we develop an idea called innovative volunteerism, and the title of my book is actually The Power of Innovative Volunteerism, which was how do we guide young people to develop their passion in areas in which they like in the environment so that they can then turn their passion into profits. For example, learning a skill to turn waste into briquettes or into biofertilizer or into biogas creates an opportunity for them not only to market those into communities, but they start to build their businesses. But most of them are still in school, and most of them will still finish and get jobs in order, but that will not stop them from moving in that pathway to creating their businesses, but as they still have a job, even in different organizations. So they follow their passion, and that then means you can even leave your job at some point to follow your passion if it's already blossomed to an extent. And I think thinking that way gives you a more robust pathway to solve problems, build your career, and at the same time, also ensure that you can make some profitability in the sustainability space.
Thank you. I hope that answers Julia's question. So the time is ticking, and I was gonna ask one last question. As we're talking about sustainability careers, I was gonna ask you what you think is the future within the careers of sustainability. As we're still studying and getting an education, we can still make our education quite specific. So I was wondering if you have an idea of where the UN is going with the environmental program and how we can get an education that mostly fits that idea in the future, so we can make sure we get that career we want.
Actually, you are studying at the best time in the history of the world. Because when I was doing my master's in 2004 and then PhD 2005 to 2006 and 7, the opportunities at that time were not as immense as they are now. And so you studying now with your peers are actually at what I call the tipping point, because as I mentioned in my remarks, yes, you hear about net zero emissions. People have not really figured out what it will take for that to mean at the local level and what solutions. Of course, yes, net zero emissions, lower emissions, yes, but what does that mean to a mother in a village or a farmer in a little village in southern India or in southern Africa or northern Africa, all those sort of stuff. So those solutions will have to come from you guys. And that is the real determinant of the sustainability space that will be driven in a different way, more from a technology perspective. Developing a tool in Sweden or in any part of the world will have applicability in Africa or India or in Latin America. You don't necessarily need to be there. Developing an idea anywhere in the world can find its applicability in any part of the world. And therefore, because the world now is a global village and so interconnected, and now moving towards digital, it then means there is really no excuse to give in not getting into the sustainability field to solve a problem anywhere in the world. And therefore, the future of sustainability is actually one that is going to be the most lucrative, is going to be the most demanding, and therefore the solutions and the demand for those solutions are going to be higher than ever before. Because the changing climate is already with us today. The world is at 1.2 degrees. The World Meteorological Organization released a report last week showing the world is at 1.2 degrees. Last year was the warmest year. The challenges we see, floods, cyclones, hurricanes, to what extent can we start to devise solutions that can withstand these calamities we see? That answer is not yet there as much, and you guys will provide the answer. And that's the essence of sustainability.
Thank you. That's a good question. So technology and tools for the future. I think we'll now start to wrap up this webinar. But before we do, I want to ask you if you have any final thoughts or comments that you would like to share with us.
Yeah, thanks again. I mean, it was really enjoyable to me discussing with you guys, and I just want to thank you all for inviting me to be with you guys here today. But my parting shot is what you already know. What I've learned throughout my career till date is that you should never ever underestimate your potential of the impact you can create in the entire human race by just doing the little. And never focus on the negatives, because negative energy drains. But positive energy inspires and drives transformational solutions. And if we focus on positive energy by focusing on what works, by devising the little environmental sustainability solutions we can, that will help inspire more people. And then we'll create a groundswell of solutions that can actually become the solutions to the challenges that we face in the world. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a great final comment. So to end this webinar, we will just say some final points. And firstly, as Emma mentioned in the beginning, this will be uploaded on our YouTube channel, the FUF Play, where you can watch it later or share with friends and family. If you enjoy these kind of events and would like to learn more about the global development issues, you can also become a member of our organization, FUF. You can find more information about this at our Facebook or Instagram or the email that's both on the slides. Also, if you'd like to help us arrange these kind of events in the future, you can contact us, our local group, the FUF Stockholm Södra, by email, Facebook, or Instagram as well. We are currently looking for new members, and so feel free to reach out. And because now during the pandemic, we're mostly online, which means that even if you don't live in Stockholm, you can be part of this organization. Finally, we really hope that you enjoyed this discussion and that we'll also see you for our next monthly event in May. And thank you all so much for joining us, and have a nice afternoon. We also want to lastly thank you, Dr. Richard Munang, for being part of this again. I can see that there's a lot of people saying this was very inspiring in the chat. So thank you.